I am Margherita Giuffrè. I'm an architect in the Institute of Environmental Geology and Geoengineer of the CNR, and I will try to connect an old and consolidate methodology for the analysis of urban settlement with the HBIM tools. Okay. This presentation, the focus of this presentation is how HBIM tools can be used for urban scale issues and in particular for mitigation of seismic risk in historical centers. We can say that HBIM is a tool for complex and layered issues, especially when we speak about the urban scale, and but when it's in connection with geographical information systems, because in this way we connect the management of the data management at the architectural scale with georeferential analysis of the settlement scale. We have organized 4 characteristics that are multiscalarity, that is the integration between different scale of information from the building to the settlement, the interdisciplinarity, between the integration between the data deriving from different fields, architecture, restoration, engineering, and planning, the data sharing, that is the possibility of sharing between different skills and institutional responsibilities, and the scenario assessment, or the simulation of different configuration between possible solutions. When we speak about seismic risk, we know that Italy is one of the countries with highest level of seismic risk in Europe. And looking at according with the seismic hazard map of the INGV, we can see that the 48% of the municipalities are in high seismic hazard zones. And these zones are corresponding with the internal areas countries that are 43% of the municipality and the 23% of population. If we remember the last seismic event in central Italy, we know that they are the territories that have increased their condition of isolation and the population after the event. So when we speak about conservation and safety, we are speaking about something more difficult, and the recovery phase is also even slower. For this reason, policy has to have target interventions for security, but also strengthening of functional connection between territories. And in this perspective, the urban planning approach has a relevant role. But what do we mean when we speak about prevention of seismic risk at the urban scale? Look at these pictures, we can see that urban damage is a systemic damage. When only one element falls down, it can affect the behavior of the entire systems that can be productive, the residential and the cultural heritage. So when we talk about the possibility of recovery for a settlement, a vision only at the building scale is not enough. In a prevention perspective, it's necessary to speak about infrastructure in terms of accessibility, escape roads, and connection. About localization of emergency areas and temporary settlements, and in terms of interventions for the priority of the intervention that we can do, and the strategic buildings that are inside the historical centers. Here we have the prevention approach is not acquired in ordinary risk management in Italy, because in Italy usually we work in the emergency management and in the reconstruction phase, not in the prevention. But since the 90s, some methodology have been experimented, and these are the main references for seismic prevention on a urban scale. These are three methodologies that I will show faster, as faster as possible. This is the first studies on vulnerability of urban systems. It's an old methodology that was applied in Emilia-Romagna region since the 90s. And I show this because it was the first time that an urban analysis for the risk reduction was experimented. And this is a preliminary assessment methodology of the risk factors for urban systems. It was organized in 11 urban systems, analyzed with 7 indicators of risks. And the approach was the one of the vulnerability of the historical center. The method used was the aggregate scale, and you know this methodology. And the first step was the analysis of the local construction technique with the observation of walls, roofs, historical strengthening structures, the individuation of building typologies recording in the aggregate with the critical survey and historical documentation found. And the third step was the individuation of damage mechanism of the aggregates about the previous analysis to arrive to the guide project that is about a settlement scale and the aggregate scale, where we can identify the extensive intervention on buildings, intervention on open spaces, and the intervention on emergency management systems. So 3 kinds of observations. At the scale of the aggregate, we have the intervention criteria have been identified for the reduction of structural vulnerability of the single buildings. This study answered to this question: which parts of the city or urban systems are damaged more than others? Or which areas and systems are more vulnerable than others? So if we, the correspondence with the 4 characteristics that we have indicated before partially occurs, because it's certainly a systemic and interscalar study with different level of details. It's an interdisciplinary approach because it includes all risk factors, even if with different levels of detail. And about data sharings, it's a traditional process with no information technology because it's really traditional. And about the scenario assessment, we have a preliminary evaluation without scenario configuration. It's a project. Pass to the second methodology that I want to show you. This is a further step because it's not a standard to all built areas, but it's a selection of existing elements which constitute the supporting structure of the urban system. So we can identify the minimal system of infrastructures, open spaces, urban functions, and strategic buildings for the urban response to the earthquake in the emergency phase, and for the maintenance and recovery of ordinary urban activities in the post-earthquake phase. This analysis is analytical and planning category, because we can begin from the identification of the components, then we go on with the analysis of the criticality, and we have to identify the intervention that goes to increase the functionality of the settlement. With the repetition of check and correction of this project, we can identify the tools and the subject and the implementation methods. I show you the first step. They are the identification of the components. You can see that the settlement is divided in different systems, the emergency system and the recovery one. The first is the accessibility, the open spaces, the strategic structure and the lifelines. And the second is the system of economics, productive activities and main urban functions, and the system of cultural heritage and places of interaction. The image on the right shows 6 analyses carried out in 6 different municipalities. You can see that the analysis is extended in the whole municipal territory, and always the historical center are included. So it's difficult to have the resource to make them completely safe. The second step is the individuation of critical elements that reduce or interrupts the system functionality, and they can be the singular element with direct or induced vulnerability, or systemic elements, and they can be the elements who fall in local hazard. That means stable zones susceptible to local amplification, or zones subject to instability. Yes. The third step is the increase of the functionality, that are intervention, strategic, integrated urban planning, action, and interventions. They are at the urban scale and historical center scale, and they define the criticality reduction in the mobility, in the strategic functions, and the delocalization of strategic functions, and the redundancy with adding alternative roads or adding alternative strategic functions. We can see here the comparison with the three different analyses in three different municipalities. We can see that the analysis is a multiscalar analysis with a survey at the municipal scale, the urban center scale, and the historical center scale. They are very different municipalities with different extension. Just to show the detailed level of the analysis, we have a different survey form for each kind of element. We have the road vulnerability assessment parameters here and the open spaces. And focusing on the survey scale of the aggregates, here we are the typological and morphological parameters for the assessment of the seismic vulnerability of the aggregates. You can see that we are studying about the aggregates and not the single building. This analysis answers to the question which parts of the urban center must resist in any case, and also this analysis is a multidisciplinary as a multiscalarity approach, systemic, urban scale, and the different level of detail, also if we don't affront the building scale, as the characteristic of interdisciplinarity, because of approach the three factors of risk. And about data sharing and scenario assessment, we are always with an old methodology with traditional process and information technology and no evaluation for the project. The third and the last analysis I want to show you is the limit condition for the emergence of settlements. This is an analysis that is really more extended in Italy because it's financed by national funding issued with the law 77/2009 after the L'Aquila earthquake. And this is the first time that a national law think about the reconstruction of the territories hidden by the event, but think also about multi-years financing for all the national territory, in particular for the municipalities with the highest seismic risk. And we are speaking about 4,000 municipalities in Italy. The allocation fund is really high because we have like more than 1,000 million euros. And the intervention that this national plan has funded are three types of intervention. They are seismic microzonation studies and analysis of the limit condition of emergency studies. And the other is the structural local intervention for seismic strengthening of buildings of the strategic interest, and the same intervents in private buildings. So it's a very big and extended program. In the imagine down, we have the status of implementation, and we can see that today the 77% of the seismic microzonation are validated, and the 72% of the analysis, the urban analysis, are validated also. But what is this analysis? The limit condition for the emergence of settlement is that condition which, following the seismic event, the settlement is subject to physical and functional damage, such that almost all present urban functions are interrupted, including residents, and the settlement preserves the operation of most of the strategic emergency functions, their accessibility and connection with the territorial context. If we look at this graphic in the right, we can see that the more the seismic intensity increases, the more increase the loss of functionality of urban systems, up to the limit condition of emergency where if it's exceeded, the emergency management functions are also interrupted and it's no longer possible to help people. This analysis is made by the different elements, the strategic buildings for the emergency management, that is the selection of elements identified by the civil protection plans. And there are three main types: the coordination of interventions, the medical assistance, and operational interventions. The emergency areas that are essential, the assembly one and the sheltered areas. The infrastructure for connection between strategic elements and the infrastructure for accessibility, and all the interfering structural aggregates and the interfering structural units that are behind these elements. This is important because we have different kind of analysis if we pass inside or outside of the historical centers. In this image, you can see the analysis that it's a minimum urban system and it covers less than the real dimension of the urban center. Very less, because this is the center of Faenza. Faenza is has more buildings than the one of the analysis. The basic data that we use for different for this analysis have different origins, from geological studies, emergency plans, and specific building vulnerability studies, and other data are acquired in the field. And these data are processed according to the Civil Protection Department National Archival Standards, and then they are collected in a digital data infrastructure on a freely accessible GIS platform. These are data georeferenced and two-dimensional, not three. These are some the 5 survey forms for the expeditious visual analysis of the 5 elements that we study, and a focus on the sheet of the structural aggregate with the indication of the aggregate, the subdivision in a structural unit, and the interaction between them, and the relation with the geographical data and geological, data, and the seismic microzonation. These are some of this information. But the relation with the seismic microzonation is the most important part of this analysis, because this geological information is a fundamental layer for the planning. This is another study that is paid with this project, and this analysis analyzed the built-up areas and building areas, and identify the map of homogeneous microzones in a seismic perspective that individuate the stable areas susceptible to amplification, and the unstable areas. We do this example with Bagno di Romagna, and we can see that the overlaying of the analysis of CLA that is here in the right, with the analysis of seismic microzonation, can show that the historical center of San Piero in Bagno is in a susceptible zone with the high amplification, and is surrounded by slope, instability, landslide. So this is it's really important, because the geological knowledge associated with the urban studies give important indication for urban planning, identifying attention areas where adopt specific measures to build. The last issues that I want to share with you is the relation between this analysis and the historical center. We say that this analysis is systemic, is the only one system of the urban center, the one of the management, the emergency management. So it different if this system passes inside the consolidated historical center or is outside. In these two examples, we have on the left the emergency management that passes adjacent to the consolidated center with two strategic functions, that it has a lower urban impact. And on the right, we have the Ascoli Piceno municipality, where the emergency management passes inside the consolidated center with six strategic functions and 3 emergency areas. And we have a greater urban impact. So if this analysis could be an opportunity to promote intervention, but it depends from the available resources of the municipality and what they want to do for the territory, it's for sure an occasion to have a first mapping of data, useful for any other studies and scenario simulation. These are other examples of the same difference between inside analysis and outside analysis. And this is a confront between 4 analyses at different scale, with extension and demographic characteristic different. And this is the digital data infrastructure that the program used for this project, and it's supported by up and down platform data exchange between the Civil Protection Department and the regions, and by an MS web portal that is an information cartographic GIS portal where the data are free, in free consultation and impartial download. This analysis of the CLA is answer to the question, what must resist within a settlement to manage the emergency? We can say that the multiscalarity is okay, also if we speak about only one system, not all the urban system. We have the interdisciplinarity. The data sharing is a semi-shared process because this project has involved at different institutional levels, and but it remains a process, a centralized process, so it's difficult to have a real connection between the actors involved. About the scenario assessment, we don't have any scenarios because it's not an evaluation, it's only analysis. I finished this presentation with this data of diffusion. The analyses that are financed by the state are like 3,000 in Italy. All the other cases are like for a few dozen because they depend from the municipality, the voluntà.